Hello crafty friends and welcome. Amanda here with Crafting with Amanda, and as you saw, this is part of the 14 days of Christmas that Janet and MK Gunn from Galaxy Girl Creation and No Assemblage Required, those channels put together, and it's all about Christmas or winter themes. And at first I'm like, I don't have a lot of Christmas photos, so you can see I pulled that one photo of me holding our oldest as a babe in arms, but I also found, because I've been working on heritage photos, I decided to go through and look at all of them, and I found enough heritage photos that I can do all 14 days with those, so I'm pretty excited. This video today is going to be a little different than what I've done, kind of a combination of things, in that I'm showing you more of the full process of how I scrapbook. So what I've done is I've pulled together many of my Christmas themed papers, and I'm trying, especially with the heritage photos, to find a paper pack that works with the photo, it doesn't fight against it. Heritage or older photos to me have that muted tones to them, and I think they can get overwhelmed by the bright colors, but at the same time I don't want the whole album to be just all muted. So I went through and I looked at the photo, and this is my dad and me, by the way, in 1975. Yeah, I think 1975 was the date on it. In Westerville, Ohio. So I at first started to compare Colonial White versus White Daisy, and it was no comparison. Colonial White is absolutely the color to use with this photo. And then this paper pack, which is White Christmas, I think. Let me take a look for you on that name. No, it's White Pines, I think. But it also uses Colonial White. It was a Bring Back My Pack a little bit ago, so if you haven't been around close to my heart for a long time, you might not have the originals, but you could have gotten the Bring Back My Pack version of this paper. But I have the original, and I pulled an old cranberry cardstock as my base, and then this particular wreath, this twig wreath, gosh, several years ago now, I'm going to say 6-8 years ago, as part of a thank you to my club gals in December, our project was I cut all of these wreaths in different sizes, and then they made poinsettia flowers, and I will be making one of them for this wreath, so you'll get to see that process as well. And then they had this beautiful paper wreath that they could hang in their house, and they could choose if they wanted red, pink, white, or blue for the colors on it. I also did these twigs with the berries on them, and I was going to color them at first, and then I decided to keep them white, and especially with this background of red, they just pop out there. I had started talking about how this particular video is going to be a little different than what I've been doing normally, in that I'm going to show you more of the full process of how I get to where I'm going. So here I'm trying to do some vertical lines behind that wreath, just kind of to counterbalance the photo on the wreath. And as you'll see here, I don't really care for that, it's too busy. And then I thought, oh, what if I put something behind the wreath, and then I can slip those vertical banners behind that. And as you'll see going forward, that's exactly what I do. I also am going to show you in this all of the steps, doing all the inking edges with the sponge and the blending tool, going ahead and adhering down all of these banner pieces. I don't show you me cutting the papers, but you'll see that I actually cut them in two different sections, so that I only use 2 inches of each of these paper ends to tuck in underneath, and that way you save a lot of paper, and you don't really need it because it's going to be tucked behind that blue anyhow. I did cut out some of my fussing with these ends and how much I moved them around, because I don't think you need to see all of that, because I do get a little fussy on it. And I pulled from my stencils, I needed something to break up that solid red in the background, the cranberry. So I went and was looking at my stencils, and this one happened to be on top because I recently used a different stencil from this pack. This is a card stencil pack from Close to My Heart. And this, when I looked at it, it kind of reminded me of a combination of a snowflake and kind of a really pointy, I don't want to say poinsettia, but it spoke Christmas to me versus like a spring flower. And so what I did with that Post-it tape is I'm actually, masking some of the areas on the stencil because they had squared edges, and I didn't want any squared flowered edges to make it look like there was a hard line. So I used the Post-it tape to kind of mask those off. And originally when I was putting it down, I was trying to line it up with the bottom corner of the paper. And then I realized I needed to bring it up more so that it could overlap here at the top, and I could get some of the textured stenciled paste within the border of the stencil and kind of make it more of a flow. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. You can see where I used that posted tape to mask off some of the areas of the stencil. It was really easy to do. I struggle here with putting the textured paste on because when I pull down, I want to make sure that I don't get any on the background, and I really should have turned this 180 degrees and just started, on the stencil and pulled down, but I didn't think of that at the time. So again, I moved the stencil down a bit, and then I'm adding in some more just to finish out the page. I thought it would be fun just to do one more of those big flowers or snowflakes here on the corner, and then I think the very corner of the paper is missing something, so I'm going to go ahead and do a partial. And I already had the textured paste on my palette, so I've cleaned up my mess. I strongly recommend, if you use texture paste, to do that, to go ahead and clean it up right away. Otherwise it just cements itself on, and you might end up having to throw away some of your things if you wait too long. So here I'm dry fitting again, fussing with these banner ends. I'm laughing at myself because I really did spend a lot of time looking at this and trying to get it just right. And then I moved the photo down and everything else, so it's kind of interesting. But I like to dry fit when I'm creating. I found that I like the end results when I go ahead and take the time to dry fit before I glue everything down. So I could have inked all the edges because I knew that was the direction I was going in, but I get excited to see what direction the layout's going to go in before I kind of do that. So that's exactly what I did, was dry fit everything. And then there you can see the components that were left over from the wreaths we made years ago, and the word that you can kind of see part of says rejoice, and the other word that they got to choose from said joy. So it was a fun project, but it was nice. For me, it's nice these many years later going ahead and using up some of these components. So I'm pulling the very last of the red poinsettia stack leaves, and it's from a Close to My Heart cartridge. I don't even remember which one. I apologize for that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ink the edges of everything with mocha ink. I believe the original color in this paper pack was an almond. It didn't really have a brown, but I just wanted to bring in that warm, rich brown, especially with my twigs, and then on the poinsettia leaves, having that brown was going to be good, and the same for all of the stems, all of the pine boughs here. I got a little heavy-handed on the very first one that I did, but after that you'll notice I didn't re-ink any. I just kind of pressed my sponge down a little bit more to ink all those up, and it kind of removes some of the Cricut cut pieces that you may see, but it also camouflages the white core of the Close to My Heart cardstock, which I love that Close to My Heart cardstock has a white core, but at the same time I think it's good to, sometimes you need to camouflage that just to give a, I don't want to say a cleaner edge, but more visual interest. And you might notice that on this blue paper I did keep the zip strip on because it was kind of a tone on tone with just a little bit of a texture difference, and I thought that looked great on this layout, kind of a little bonus interest here. I'm going to go ahead and finish up these pine boughs, and then I will probably dry fit again, knowing myself, And I did include chapters in this, and I probably should have said something in the beginning of this, but I did include chapters. If you want to skip ahead, you can do that. There should be marks underneath the video that you can just jump ahead on this and see the next section. So here I'm grabbing our T-square ruler, easy for me to say, so that I can make sure that those pieces line up from top to bottom. And you can see I just move the ruler over, line up the one edge. As far as how far they are from the top or the bottom of the sheet, that didn't matter to me as much as making sure that it looked like it was one piece of paper running from the top to the bottom. So here I'm gluing down my stuff. Like I said, I'm showing you this, so if you want to skip ahead to just see it after it's glued, that's fine too. But I know some people like to see some of the process. And here these are very flat. I have not given them any interest or texture with shaping them at all. I will do that with the poinsettia. You'll get to see that. But I do not do that right now with the pine boughs. I will kind of do that at the end just to give it some interest. And I know being in a scrapbook page protector and in a book and standing on a shelf, they might get smushed, but I make sure that my books don't lay flat. They do stand up with the spine up and down, and that just helps it not be as squished in, if that makes any sense. So you can see here that I kind of move the extra white, the smaller white berry branch to the top and the poinsettia to the bottom. And here I'm just using my scoring tool, but it has such a nice curved edge that it works great for shaping these flowers. Normally I use a stylus to shape my flowers on a foam sheet, but this case I wanted the smooth of the cardstock. I didn't want it wrinkled as much as the styling ball does, so that's why I decided to go ahead and use my stylus this way. That gold foil glue, gold foil paper doesn't hold the glue as well, and so that's why I had to use the point of my stylus to kind of hold it in place until it was fully dry. And I'll do that again to put it on the page. So now I felt like this wreath needed something more, and I had tried some red buttons, but those didn't work. And then I went and got these wooden buttons from Close to My Heart from years ago, and I had that rub-on tray, and so I used the gold. And here on the camera you can't see that it made that much of a difference, but in real life the gold rub-on really works well. It has a shine to it, and it just really helps tie in the gold from the center of the poinsettia. And I found here that I needed some more leaves, and I'm going to go ahead and fluff my branches, kind of like putting up an artificial Christmas tree. And I don't have much journaling to say because I don't know much about this photo. On the back of it and my granddad's writing, it had both mine and my dad's name, and they called me Mandy back then. That lasted, well, my dad called me Mandy my whole life. But in first grade, I asked my first grade teacher how to spell Amanda, because that's just who I am. Names are powerful, words are powerful. So here's a close-up of the layout. Be sure to check out all the other gals that are playing along with this 14 days of Christmas. The links will be in my description under the video, as well as the bookmarks. If you want to connect with me on social media, here's how you can do that. I do have a Facebook group. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I invite you to do that now. If you have, I just want to say thank you. I truly appreciate you. Here's another video you may be interested in. Be kind to yourself. Have a great day. Blessings.